集中だ、集中。
は？
ん？
ここだー！
なあ
Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. So, math is important, right? Well, with 52 weeks in the year, we don't have the same amount of time between each of the 6 bashos, which I forgot, which is why I was pretty surprised to find out this past weekend that Guess the Banzuke is upon us already. There are plenty of points which required more thought after the instant Banzuke, so no messing around, let's dive right in. Starting at the top, as usual, Onosato. Now, this is worth noting. Onosato, he was 1 East, he won the Yusho, Hoshoryu was 1 West, he lost in the playoff, so obviously Onosato is going to be East and Hoshoryu is going to be West. If it was reversed, if Hoshoryu had won the tournament, but they had finished with the same record, he won in a playoff, it's not entirely clear what would have happened. Going by history, probably Hoshoryu would have gone ahead, but that hasn't happened every time, so it would be a little bit of a guess. But that doesn't matter right now. For this one, Onosato, Yokozuna East, Hoshoryu, Yokozuna West. Kotozakura, he remains the only Ozeki, he is Ozeki East. We already know that Aonishiki is going to go to Sekiwake East, Oho, Sekiwake West, they are the only options. Takano Sho, he's gonna be a Komusubi. Now, I looked this up because there were a little bit of questions about, well, he's coming up from Maegashira 7, so maybe Takayasu and Hakuoho are going to end up ahead of him and he'll go to Maegashira 1 East. That's not how this works. There have been a lot of guys in the last 20 years that had 12 wins at Maegashira 7. They didn't always go ahead of guys who they should have been ahead of mathematically, but this is how it worked. If the guys who they were ahead of mathematically qualified to get to the Sanyaku, earn their way into the Sanyaku, so like they were Maegashira 2 and they were 9 and 6, they would go to the Sanyaku. And then if there were no more spots for the Maegashira 7 guy, he would end up staying in Maegashira, like Maegashira 1 East, 1 West, whatever. If they both went to the Sanyaku, then the Maegashira 7 would go ahead because he was supposed to be ahead mathematically, he had earned a higher rank, so he stayed ahead if they were both in the Sanyaku. But if the guy in Maegashira, like Maegashira 2 or 3, he didn't do well enough to earn a spot in the Sanyaku, he did not get there, and the guy from Maegashira 7 went there instead. In this case, Takano Sho is ahead of Hakuoho. Hakuoho only earned his way up from Maegashira 2 to Maegashira 1, so Takano Sho should stay ahead of him. Likewise, if somebody in the Sanyaku had a losing record, whether they stayed in it or not, the guy from Maegashira 7 would go ahead of them if mathematically he was supposed to be ahead of the Sanyaku guy. So it's pretty safe. Yes, they could do anything they want, but it's pretty safe to say Takano Sho should be Komusubi East. That brings us to our first inflection point, Takayasu or Hakuoho. It should be Takayasu. Logically, it should be Takayasu. Hakuoho has been pretty fortunate. He went 8 and 7 at Maegashira 7, went up to 4. He went 8 and 7 at Maegashira 4, went up to 2. There is a reasonable option other than putting Hakuoho at Komusubi. It's leaving Takayasu at Komusubi and only moving him back half a rank. I think that if there's like a tiebreaker thought, that if they're really split on this, they might go with, well, Hakuoho's been jumping very quickly with barely winning records. Yeah, he just beat the Yokozuna for the 2nd time in a row, but he's Maegashira 1 East. If he really should be there, let's make him earn it. There's really no good reason to jump him over Takayasu, but if you believe that something like a Kinboshi or a second Kinboshi over Onosato, over the champion, should give some kind of a reward and that moving to Komusubi would be that reward, I mean, okay, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I think this is closer to a coin flip than it should be, but it should be Takayasu staying at Komusubi. So that's what I'm gonna go with. Wakamoto Haru, Wakatakakage, Kirishima. Do they go in this order, or does Wakabro go behind the other two? There was a recent example of this, like last year, where Daisho was 6 and 9 at Komusubi, and Hiradeumi was 9 and 6 at Maegashira 4. Daisho stayed ahead of Hiradeumi, even though Hiradeumi was mathematically that half rank ahead. The question here is, are they going to do that to Wakamoto Haru and put him behind both guys? This is where I had a little bit of a question. Like, okay, moving back a half rank, no big deal. Are you going to move him back a full rank just to save both Sekiwaki, just because there's two of them? Or does the fact that there's two of them mean they're just going to have to eat the whole demotion and lets Wakamoto Haru get away with getting his full promotion to 1 West? And then I realized, you know what, I'm probably overthinking this. If it was just Wakamoto Haru and Wakatake Kage, this would be a no-brainer. So probably Kirishima's going to stay ahead of him too. More than likely, Wakatake Kage goes to 1 West. The logical follow-up is that Wakamoto Haru goes to 2 West, but I think he's most likely to end up at 2 with Kirishima one way or the other. I'm just going to do this because it's easier. It should be right. I think it'll be right, but something goofy could happen. As always, try not to have too much faith in the logic of the committee. Hiraumi and Ura. Well, Ura is going to be behind Hiraumi. Does Ura go behind Tamawashi? He's a full rank ahead mathematically, but he's coming up from Maegashira 8. This is one of those cases where if Tamawashi was already being under-demoted, I think it would be more likely that Ura stays ahead of him. But because Tamawashi, if you flip these two, he only gets under-demoted by a half a rank, I think that Ura is not actually who matters here. It's them. They're going to say, where should we put Tamawashi? Is it correct to put him at 4 East, or does he deserve to be at 3 West? I think they're going to say 3 West, and then that puts Ura at 4 East. I think it's going to be less of a comparison between the two and more just, where do we put the old man? Even if I'm wrong, I think this is most likely Tamawashi to 3 West, Ura to 4 East. And so far, this is stuck to the instant Banzuke. Thought about it some more, but I came up with the same conclusions. Now, Oshoma at 4 West is absolutely correct. Kusano should go up, Shodai should go up. None of that should be in question. Onokatsu, unless they're really hell-bent on giving him a demotion, then okay, he should be at 6 East. Could they put Itami Fuji ahead of him? Could they do this? Yes. Are they going to? I glossed by this when I was figuring out my official prediction, and now that I'm looking at it again, this seems more plausible, but I'm not going to go with it. I'm actually going to go with, and this is still a change from the instant Banzuke, I'm going to go with Onokatsu having no demotion, and then Churanaumi ahead of Itami Fuji. And the reason is this. Itami Fuji was in the Joy. The way they treat guys in the Joy, he should be ahead of Churanaumi. He might even be ahead of Onokatsu. And one of those things could still happen. But because so much was expected, and because he's been so disappointing, I don't think they are of a mind to be nice to him. I don't think they are of a mind to be like, we're going to minimize your demotion because you were in the Joy, you can be effective in the Joy. He can't be effective in the Joy. I think they're going to be perfectly happy getting him out of there. Putting him behind Churanaumi is a little bit more of a risk, but the more I looked at it, the more this just felt right. It doesn't make sense the way they normally do things, but to me, it just feels correct. I just don't see Churanaumi ending up behind Itami Fuji. This is the kind of vibes-based pick that I try to get away from because it's wrong so often, and yet I just can't shake the feeling this is how it's going to go. If you think Itami's going to be ahead, you're probably smarter than me and you should probably go with it. But this is my pick. Chura ahead of Itami. It's a risk. I'm going with it. Next, we'll just move up Kinbozan and Midori Fuji and Daisho because there's no option. They're going to stay in place. There are not enough guys to push them down. Abi's going to end up at 7 West. There's really no one else who can go there. And then we get to the question of Tobizaru or Ichi Yamamoto at 8 East. If it's Ichi Yamamoto, he's going to be down 2.5 ranks on 4 and 11. And very simply, I don't think the committee will allow that. I think they're going to look at that as, no, absolutely not. He has to go down further. I don't think they're going to be happy just giving him -4 on 4 and 11. But that's really the only option. Tobizaru goes up to 8 East. I don't think they're going to do something so crazy as like put Tobizaru ahead of Itami Fuji, but kind of like with Tamawashi and Ura, I think this decision really revolves more around Ichi Yamamoto. He is allowed to go to 8 East. They could put him at 8 East, but I don't think they will. I think they will find that an insufficient demotion, which will benefit Tobizaru, and it probably doesn't hurt that Tobizaru is a proven quality wrestler at the mid to high ranks. They won't be as hesitant to put him this high, give him this big of a jump, as they might be with some other guys. Fujinokawa defaults to the 10 West spot. Roga is next. Now, Roga is ahead of Tomokaze and Shishi by half a rank. So Roga should end up at 11 West with no demotion. That gives Kota Shoho a pretty good opportunity to just jump in at 11 East, 3 and 12, -6. That seems okay. One thing I played with was Roga actually dropping to 12 West and ending up behind Shishi and Tomokaze. If they were all tied, I think this would be very plausible. Obviously, with Roga being mathematically ahead, this is a bad idea. But since it started to look like they prefer dropping guys down on 7 and 8 when they can, it's a little too crazy. I don't think it's going to happen. We're just going to put Roga up at 11 West, and then we'll put Shishi and then Tomokaze. But the next thing we need to consider is, where does Gonoyama go? Because he should end up somewhere in this group. Are they going to give Shishi his plus and Tomokaze his plus? By plus, I mean an over promotion, and leave Gonoyama behind them. So in the instant Banzuke, I put Gonoyama between them. I actually had Tomokaze ahead of Shishi. I had it like this. I've gotten away from that. I think Shishi is going to end up ahead of Tomokaze. And I haven't rewatched the video. I think my logic was Gonoyama would end up between them because reasons, like they wouldn't be able to decide where to put him, so they would just put him between the two guys, and that seems a little goofy. As long as Tomokaze and Shishi are getting at least their base promotions, and in this case they are, -8.5 on 1 and 14, that seems okay. That probably is a little bit light compared to what they want, and for that reason, I do think Tomokaze and Shishi ahead of Gonoyama is plausible. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking it over again, but the more I mull it over in my mind, I just can't see Gonoyama getting stuck behind these guys. Tomokaze is, like, he had a good tournament, but he is marginal Makuuchi level at best. Shishi is marginal. I mean, I guess they're probably hoping he improves, but right now he's marginal. Gonoyama is proven to be, all right, he's pretty much a failure in the Joy, but he's better than these two. So I think he's probably going to end up ahead of both of them. Unfortunately, that means Mitakeumi is the 1, 7, and 8 guy of everybody above him that ends up getting the -1. But, you know, it is what it is. After that, we've got Ryuden and Toki Hayate. Those guys are really the only options there. Shonen Naomi cannot go higher than 15 West, which plugs Nishiki Fuji in at 15 East. The only other option is to give Sada Naomi just 1 rank down with his 6 and 9, and I don't think that's going to happen. What probably will happen is Sada Naomi getting bumped up to 16 East and Asakoryu to 16 West, so they go down 2 ranks with their 6 and 9s. So we slide Chiyoshoma over to make room for Oshoumi. Scrolling down, again, unfortunately Fujiseiyun and Asahakuryu are not going to be part of this, but if we go up again and focus on this area, the final question is, where does Meisei go? Although he could end up ahead of these two because he was in Makuuchi. It wouldn't be in that order, it would be in this order. He was in Makuuchi, they give him the 1 rank under demotion, everything's cool. They could put him at the bottom because that is his 5 ranks down and the other 2 guys earned their way in. But because Oshoumi and Chiyoshoma were 1 rank apart and had the same record, even though there's no compulsion for the committee to keep these guys at the same distance from each other that they were, this is a situation where I feel like they're gonna debate, well, should Meisei go ahead? Should he go behind? They'll end up with Meisei in the middle as a compromise. And one of the extra pieces of logic for that compromise will be that Oshoumi and Chiyoshoma were a rank apart and they can stay a rank apart this way. So I feel pretty good about Meisei at 17 West, even though it's a pretty arbitrary choice. And that's our official Banzuke prediction for November 2025. Guess the Banzuke deadline this Monday, October 20th, midday. If you're in the Western Hemisphere, do it the night before, save yourself the headache. Entries are currently pretty low, but I can't blame anybody for not wanting to do this one because this one looks like a pain in the ass. But hey, these are the ones where it's low stress, right? If you get it wrong, well, who is going to get it right? Only somebody who got lucky. And if you get it right, you're a genius. So there's no reason not to play. The entry form along with Chiyo Tsuke's helper that you can see on screen, as always, those are in the description. I am still working on the script for Aonishiki's Ozeki run. The research on this got real. I'm not setting an explicit goal for when to get it out. If I can get it out before the Banzuke drops, that would be fantastic, but we'll see. There is one other video besides the regular ones that I want to work on before the Basho, but that one's about Hirudaumi's false starts, and I could probably do that one anytime. Anyway, guess the Banzuke, don't forget to enter, have a great day, and I'll see you soon.